You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 51. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how to stop over drinking in 90 days without missing out on life. If you're not an alcoholic, but fed up with saying yes to a drink when you mean to say no, you're in the right place. Hi all, and welcome back to the podcast. Now, before I get into today's session, I want to encourage you to listen right the way to the end, because at the end, I'm going to be talking about what I have on offer this year for Black Friday. Yes, I'm doing Black Friday this year. I haven't done that before, but I have 3 offers that will help you as you go ahead and change your relationship with alcohol, so you're not going to want to miss that. Okay. So with that in mind, actually, that's a good segue. And today I want to talk about alcohol and celebrations because, yes, we are heading into that time of year. The Christmas records aren't quite yet playing on the radio, but the adverts are all certainly there. So a couple of days hence from posting this podcast, it will be Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving celebration for our American friends. And then, of course, we're into the mad dash, the run up to Christmas and New Year being just around the corner. And perhaps already your diary may be getting booked up with office parties and drinks with friends and all those wonderful family gatherings. Yes, you know the ones I am talking about. And perhaps there's a wedding or 2 in there. We got married on New Year's Eve. We were the crazy types who did that. And yeah, there might be some birthdays and just all sorts actually at this time of year. Now, if you're frustrated with your drinking, this can look like a pretty challenging landscape indeed. I like to think of it as a little bit like one of those old video games. I don't mean the modern ones. I haven't played a modern video game in years, but like the old ones in the old days with the Pac-Man, where you sort of go along and you'd have to avoid all these dragons and monsters and other obstacles, or you'd get swallowed up whole. And you may even be looking ahead and actually dreading the party season. Right? Or maybe you think you're going to change your drinking next year for sure, right? It's going to be too hard doing it over Christmas. I mean, what nincompoop would want to do that? So you may as well enjoy this year fully and, not worry about it, not think about it until January, kind of push that worry to the back of your mind. And probably and likely you've done that for a few years now. That's why I'm going to change drinking or stop drinking or whatever it is often appears on the New Year's resolution lists. But here's my perspective. I happen to think that this is an absolutely phenomenal time of year to change your drinking, to really start taking action towards that goal that you've been sort of trying to deal with for months or maybe even years. Really, you couldn't pick a better time to start. And in today's podcast, I'm going to explain why. Now, first, I want to ask a really, really basic question, but one that is actually so often overlooked, right? You've been invited or asked to a party or a celebration. But start with this. Do you actually want to go? Do you want to go to this thing that you've been invited to? So let's back up a little and first be clear about what we're talking about here. What is a celebration, right? And I took a look, I went to the dictionary, took a look at the definition, and this one certainly resonates with me. A celebration is to observe an occasion with appropriate ceremony or festivity, right? So it's all about having a good time. Now, there's nothing in the definition, by the way, about champagne. We often think celebration equals champagne, although interestingly, one of the examples, when you look at a definition, at least online, you'll have the definition of what the word means, and there'll be some common usages, so you can see the word in a sentence. And this one particular source I looked at, yes, lo and behold, was using champagne. There you go. We talk about alcohol being socialized. Anyhow, so a celebration is all about having a good time. And for all of you out there who drink to have a good time, right? I know some people, they don't drink because of negative emotions, but they drink because they really just enjoy it and it really makes something a good time, or because drinking is fun and just makes an event special. I want you to really think about that. So consider this. Let's say you're going to a wedding of a close friend. This is definitely a reason to celebrate. And now let's say that in going to this wedding, there was a hiccup, there was a problem with the alcohol delivery, right? With the wine and the champagne and the beer delivery. And there's none. There's going to be none at this wedding, all right? This wedding of your best friend. There's just going to be alcohol-free alternatives and soft drinks, right? So just put yourself in that situation, this wedding you're looking forward to going to, there's going to be no booze at all. But everyone's in the same boat, so it's not just you not drinking, everybody's not going to be drinking. Now I want you to answer this question. Will you have a good time at that wedding? Really think about it. This is your close friend. It's a beautiful venue, there's the flowers, maybe there's a DJ, maybe playing 80s tracks. You're right up my street. Or maybe the wedding's just being held and it's very simple. It's just being held in the village hall. Would you have a good time despite the lack of alcohol? My bet is that yes, you would. Because the event itself is fun. You'd probably have fun at that wedding if it was the most stripped back, bare event possible. Now, before you say, yes, and I get your point, but lots of events I go to are made more fun by the booze, I believe you. I believe that's how it seems. Right? People tell me all the time, but it's going to be absolute torture being there. And we talk about not drinking at events. It's going to be absolute torture being there. All the old family grudges, and by the way, this tends to come up with family events, all the family grudges and all the tension, it's going to be there, and white wine is really the way I get through it. But here's the question I want to ask you about those situations. Do you really want to go to them? If there was no booze available, right, so in my case, if there had been no white wine available, just like at the fictitious best friend's wedding situation I just spoke about, or maybe even there was a problem again with the drink delivery when you were going to this family event, or whatever it is, the event you've been tolerating with booze, would you want to go to that event? If it was the office do, would you want to go to it? Or the family reunion, would you want to go to it? Or even the party in the pub with your friends when perhaps you'd rather stay home. Are you tolerating these quote unquote celebrations by drinking? And if you are, is this how you want to spend your time? Time that you will never have again. Now, so often we go around saying, oh, well, you only live once, YOLO, just to go for it and get drunk. But do you want to spend your life with great chunks of it forgotten because you just can't remember what happened the night before? Or to spend days with that sort of muggy, fuzzy head? Or would you rather savour every moment? So as you face a full calendar of invitations over the next few weeks, that's where I'd start. I'd really first ask yourself if you would choose to go to that event, to whichever event it is, if no alcohol were being provided. Or is there another use of your time that you would prefer? Now, you may say, but Anna, I have to go, right? I have to go to this thing. It's expected. But again, really pause and look at that. You are an adult with free will. It is your choice. So instead of saying, I have to go, right? That's one thing I would coach on. Try out, I'm choosing to go. How does that feel? But also, if you're sitting and saying, no, but I have to go, is that an assumption that is even true? Is it really, really true? Or are you just sort of expecting that that's what everybody thinks and that's what's expected of you? So challenge yourself on that. Okay, that's my first point. You may want to assess if an occasion or an event is actually a celebration in your eyes. Okay, so now let's say you decide to go to an event or a celebration for whatever reason you're going. But now we're back into the real world, right? And there will be alcohol there, possibly lots and lots of it. And possibly lots of it will be free. It used to be a big thing for me, free booze. So I really want to start with saying that changing how you drink is a skill, right? Unlearning your desire for white wine or red wine or whatever you like to drink is a skill. Being able to attend a social function without worrying what's in your glass is a skill. These are all skills. Just think about that for a moment. It is such good news. because it means that even if you've been trying for years to change your drinking, the reason you haven't yet succeeded is because you haven't learned how. You haven't developed the skill for it. Okay, so let's explore that. Let's think about another skill that you might want to learn. Maybe to ice a cake or learn to play the trombone. Yeah, that's one of mine. Many years ago. Or perhaps you want to learn how to tile a bathroom, right? Now, if you were to start any of those things from scratch, you would probably get some tuition. Maybe you'd watch a few videos or read a few books or ask people who are experts or who know what's what. Maybe you go on a training course. But you can watch all the videos, read all the books and talk to the world's best people, right? The best trombone player, the best trombonist, the best cake icer or bathroom tiler. And it would actually mean very little until you got down to it. And you know this, right? We all know this. What matters is just to get down to doing the thing and giving it a go and practicing, giving it a go and getting better results and failing and giving a go and just keeping on going. The more cakes you ice, the better you'll get. The more tiles you cut and stick with mastic, the more neat and controlled and so on you'll be with it. And the more different pieces of music you play as a trombonist, you have a far greater repertoire, right? So these are all skills, and learning how to unlearn your desire for drink. I've covered that actually, forget which one it was, podcast 1 or 3 I think, on desire. Right, so that's a skill. Another key skill when putting yourself out in social situations is dealing with the urges to drink or the cravings, whichever term you prefer. These can seem scary and overwhelming and very frightening, right? We can be perfectly fine, then boom, right? We feel absolutely suffused with desire to drink. And then we try not to, and it just makes it even worse. And I hear so many times from people that they just want to avoid these urges, right? It's just too uncomfortable. And in fact, that's why so many of us, we end up just drinking. We feel an urge to drink. We might not even be aware we have it. But anyhow, there's an urge happening and then we just drink, right? We close the loop, close the desire, we deliver the reward. And then, it feels less stressful in our bodies. So no wonder at this time of year, with all this temptation out there, or these triggers, as we like to call them, that so many people find it difficult, because ordinarily, if they wanted to stop drinking what they've been trying to do, and which hasn't worked, but we carry on trying to do the same thing. We try to stop going to bars. I hear frequently when people first come to me that what they've tried, I always ask, what have you tried? What hasn't worked before? Well, what's your background here? They try to stop going to bars or hang out with certain friends if those friends drink. They've even tried removing all the alcohol in the house, right? While they've been trying to concentrate on changing their drinking. And this all sounds so supremely sensible. I totally get it. But I say, do the exact opposite. Run towards the temptation. Run towards these opportunities to practice managing your urges and your desire for the alcohol. Put yourself in situations where you will want to drink, where you can practice your new skills, where you can find out what works and what doesn't work. Now, I need to be clear. I'm not saying put yourself in situations where you really don't want to be. I'm not saying hang out with drunk people, just to feel the urges. No, right? I said just now, you get one life. I'm not suggesting you put yourself into positions where you just don't want to be. But what I am saying is go to the wedding, go to the bars, go to the Christmas market, go to the office party. I teach my clients the skills of managing these situations, right? Managing the urges. And on my podcast, I give you the tools to do this too. But the only way you're going to practice, you're going to be able to really change your behavior and practice, is to go out and try it. And I would also, so take a listen again to, I think it was episode 22. In episode 22, I talked very specifically about urges to drink and the 3 responses we normally have, and the one that works and the one I absolutely say just go out there and do. And if you do it enough, you'll get good at it. Because again, as I say, learning to manage the urges is a skill. That's all it is. It's a key skill. So listen to that podcast and go out and practice. And by doing this in practicing, you're going to figure out what works, you're going to figure out what doesn't work, and you're going to figure out what you do differently next time. Then you're going to give it another go. And what I will offer is that for sure, there are techniques and tools and so on, and that is what I talk about here. But, I think it's important to customize this for you and for your life. In fact, that's what I do in my one-on-one coaching sessions with my clients, where we take, the learnings, and then we very directly and very specifically apply this to the lives of my clients, because that's where you get, the biggest and quickest and fastest results. Now, if you're a bit scared at the idea of putting yourself in front of all this temptation and trying all this new stuff to learn, that's okay. You can be scared and you can take action anyway. Even a teeny tiny little action. Even that is better than taking none at all, or just brushing this under the carpet and saying, okay, well, it's going to be impossible to do it this year. I'll just start again on January. So I'll be miserable in January, which, by the way, is just another thought. You don't have to be miserable in January. Certainly don't have to be miserable without white wine or whatever your tipple is. Okay, so I've said go towards the temptation. And now I want to step you through talking about how you can create the experience you want at any celebration. And this, my friend, is within your control. Now, of course, the decision whether you drink or not is yours, right? You can rely on the white wine or the vodka, gin, fruit punch, or what was it, that yellow Advocaat stuff you used to get, right? You can rely on that to get you through. You have free will. None of this makes you a bad person, right? You can choose to drink if that's, how you want to tolerate events. But if you're wanting to change your relationship with alcohol, and actually, frankly, if you're listening to this podcast right now, I'm guessing you're looking for another way to survive these events over the festive season. Now, when it comes to families and parties, there are other people involved, right? So you might say, how can I control what sort of experience I have, Anna, when there's other people out there and they're the ones who are causing me all the frustration and the grief? Now, you might, for instance, go into the family get-together, the family reunion, and you might decide to speak more kindly to your sister after the bust-up you had a couple of months ago. And you say, right, I'm going to make an effort, but there's kind of always a little postscript there, really. We would say as long as she reciprocates, right? We're happy to make a move, but we kind of expect something in return. Here's the thing, and here's why we can so often feel frustrated and disappointed about this. Your sister in this situation doesn't know that this is what you're expecting of her. She doesn't know that this is the role that she has to play. And in fact, she might even be in disagreement with you. She may want to keep hold of this simmering resentment that's been between you since the bust-up. Right? So you see, you're going to go into the situation with all these positive thoughts. I'm going to really try and make amends. But then what happens is you see that she hasn't budged, and so then you feel aggrieved. You feel a bit stressed out maybe, and then you're going to try to cope with that scenario, and that's where often we'll be reaching for the wine, because that's the pattern we've repeated every year or each time in that scenario. The pattern your brain has learned, because your brain loves to be efficient. I talk about this all the time. So if you're in this kind of stressful standoff, of course, with a sister, for instance, even after, your best effort, you'd really try to put a foot forward. So you're probably feeling mightily aggrieved in that scenario. Your brain is going to quickly run okay, when we feel aggravated, we drink wine process. And that's how you may end up then with 3 glasses in, and you wonder how on earth you got into this situation when you swore blind to yourself that it wasn't going to happen again. And here we are again. Not drinking normally. That's something I hear a lot. No such thing. So here's a different way to approach festive celebrations this year that doesn't require the willing cooperation of anybody else. Right? This is something that you can deploy in every situation that will give you a totally different and completely different experience, even though, as I said, you don't control how others will be. And that doesn't matter one jot. because you, my friend, control you. You control how you show up. You control how you feel. And how you feel is going to determine what action you take or do not take. And I'm going to offer this directly influences the experience you will have. So that's where I would start. Ask yourself, how do you want to show up? So have an event in mind, have some party or whatever in mind. How do you want to show up? Now, maybe you're sitting there saying, well, I haven't got a clue. I don't know. Maybe you're into so much of how this is going to be a struggle, right? How this is going to feel. It's just not going to be pleasant, especially, unhappily with some family dues where it's not optional whether you go or not. You've got to be there, and so, you really can't see how to have lots of pleasure out of this event. And by the way, it might not be families. I'm kind of half talking tongue in cheek here, but some event that you're going to, and you don't want to be drinking as much, but you want to be able to view it differently. Ask instead, how would the best version of you show up? If you could be the person you want to be in all areas of your life, how would she show up? How would she plan for the event? How would she feel? Because that is open to you right now. It's open to you to be able to decide ahead of time how you're going to feel on purpose. Because how you feel in any situation is always a choice. Now, before you say, but no, and give me all these reasons how this isn't so and why it's different and, I'm going to offer that you actually already know this is true, that you have a choice on how you're going to feel in any situation, even in, let's say a situation that you would say is bad. Think of something that's already happened to you. I'm sure I've been here a million times. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but I've been in this situation many times before where in the moment something's going wrong, and in the moment it might seem a disaster, but then someone either says, or you might even be thinking to yourself, well, we'll laugh about this in the future. I remember this always takes me think of this holiday we took years ago. It's my fault. I had rented a holiday cottage near Galway, sort of down in rural Ireland. And we went along with our 3 children. They were quite young at the time. They were all under the age of 11, I think. Anyhow, so we'd been driving all day to this holiday cottage, and we rocked up, and there had been a double booking. There was already a family in the holiday cottage, and the lady we had done the booking with was away visiting family or something. I think she was in Dublin or something, and her husband was there. And her husband didn't know anything about it. He didn't manage the business, but, obviously he was trying to help. And he said, well, we could stay in the family home, right? So where he and his wife normally lived, as his wife was away, he would go and stay with a friend, and we could have the run of the family home. Okay. We didn't really have much of an option at that point, right? We really desperately needed to start feeding the children. So sort of a bit dubious, but okay, it's a kind offer. It's just for one night. We can make it happen. And then the man says, but what are we going to do about the dog? And I remember the dog was called Ben. The dog was very old. I don't know how old, but very old. And he wouldn't be able to take the dog with him to stay at his friend's house. And then my husband says, oh, we love dogs. Do we? We love dogs. We'll look after the dog. Okay, so it's first day of our holiday. We're not in the holiday cottage. We're in someone else's home. Now looking after their old dog is fine. Okay, fine. We go in, and then we spend the next hour changing sheets and trying to find just the whole thing. I mean, there were beer bottles everywhere. It wasn't my ideal of this holiday country cottage, but we managed to get ourselves sorted, and we're getting to bed and everyone's happy. But the thing about the dog is we were told that the dog sleeps in the kitchen, and they had kind of like this fire guard thing around, like this little fence thing around him. And the dog suffered, was old, and would often obviously want to go to toilet in the night. And I just have this memory of the dog then waking up, basically knocking down this fire guard thing. He didn't hurt himself, just this flimsy bit of metal. And my husband getting up, I told him he had to get up and do this. He was the one who wanted the dog, ready to take the dog out to let him out. And the dog had already relieved himself, let's say, on the kitchen floor. So my husband is walking around in bare feet on the kitchen floor in this house. It was meant to be our holiday. Anyway, pretty disastrous situation. All these years later, we laugh about this so often. We have such completely different feelings about this. In fact, I'm almost grateful that this thing happened, because it showed us, really the kind of situation we don't want to have. So any holiday that has not been good since then, or any event, we kind of compare it against that. It's kind of like our yardstick. But the thing is, this view of the event, this view of finding it actually quite funny, was open to me at the time. In that moment, we had all the kerfuffle going on with Ben the dog. I could have still found that amusing. I could have laughed in that situation, right? That was available to me right then. And for sure, it would have been a more pleasurable experience in the moment. Well, probably still not for my husband, but at least for me, if I'm standing there in fits of giggles, right? But you get the point. So we get to choose in any scenario. So how would you want to go into a party or an event or a celebration that you are choosing to go to, but which maybe you feel a little bit hesitant about? What emotion could you reach for? Perhaps you want to be present or connected or hopeful, indulgent, or maybe even just curious. So really think about that. Then really feel it. Feel that emotion. And you can practice this right now listening to this podcast. I want you to, right now, you can even do this if you're running or driving or whatever. Pick an emotion, pick any emotion, and then take yourself to the place where you can feel that emotion in your body. So I'm going to do it too, and I'm thinking of gratitude. I'm breathing in, and I'm thinking of all the things I'm grateful for. I'm feeling that in my body, and actually for me that comes across as a warmth in my chest. So right here on this rainy day, when I'm recording this podcast, I am bringing to bear the feeling of gratitude. Being able to feel on purpose, any skill, is a meta skill for life. It's going to serve you in all areas of your life, not just to do with your drinking. You can decide ahead of time how you want to feel at a school parents' evening, for instance, at work meetings, when you're in the check-in queue in the airport, when you're having a horrendous holiday experience, right? You can choose ahead of time how you want to feel. And that, my friends, is going to serve you super well when it comes to enjoying celebrations this festive season, when you are trying to reduce or change your alcohol consumption. So go on, give it a go. You will be amazed. So that's the end of the podcast. In summary, when it comes to celebrations, first ask yourself, do you really want to go to the event? And then know that managing the urges to drink and the desire you'll feel at the event in front of the temptation is something that will be of huge help to you. And that's a skill you can learn and get good at the more you do. And so what if you haven't managed it yet, if you haven't conquered it yet? Keep on practicing. Listen back to my episode 22 on urges. Maybe you call them cravings. Anyhow, I use both terms. In any event, listen to episode 22. Next, think ahead to any of the events that you are perhaps dreading, or maybe even just not looking forward to, but which you have to attend, and ask, how do you want it to be this year? What kind of experience do you want? And don't expect others to cooperate. Then take back control by deciding in advance how you want to feel. Just that one thing, deciding on purpose how you want to feel, that's going to change everything about your experience. It's totally magical. And not just for these end of year celebrations, but in all areas of your life. So that's the end of this week's podcast. And I did say there was going to be some special news about Black Friday at the end. So yes, this year I'm running a Black Friday offers. And these offers launch on Black Friday itself, 25th of November. And I'm actually going to be offering 3 levels of deal, 3 levels of support. So I've got deals on 3 items. So you can pick the one that appeals to you most. Firstly, if you are ready to be done with this drinking thing, there's a spot in my one-on-one coaching calendar with your name on it. And I am offering this at 40% off for the Black Friday period only. If you're curious, so that's the first offer. If you're curious about coaching and you want to start taking massive action, I have something for you too. And lastly, if you want to navigate the party season with ease, you aren't going to feel left out with my pre-Christmas stocking filler offer that I have. So whatever your goals and wherever you're starting, I've got something for you. Now, I'm going to be capping numbers on at least one of these sales. So you're going to want to make sure that you're first in line. You can jump the queue and join my waitlist to get priority access. So if you've been thinking about changing your drinking for months or even years, and if you've been waiting for the right time to get started, but it just never kind of seems to arrive, well, that time is now. So go to 90dayslater.co/BF and get on the wait list and get ready to change your life. Okay, I'll see you next week. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first glass of wine the moment 6 p.m. rolls around and they don't miss out on life. And we do it in 90 days. The effect is permanent. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.